Welcome to the Any Given Day podcast, your ultimate destination for all things college football. Join your hosts, Hunter and Zach, as they dive into the thrilling world of college football from the perspective of the fans. From game previews to post-game analysis, they will bring you the latest news, insights, and stories that make this sport so captivating. Join them every Tuesday and Friday as they explore the traditions, pageantry, and unforgettable moments that define college football. So whether you're a diehard fan or just getting into the game, get ready for a wild ride with the Any Given Day podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Any Given Day podcast. Yeet. So we're going to get right into it. We get Georgia Tech versus Miami to start this one off. A lot closer. Lot closer than it should have been. And let me just say, I know he's done this before, but why? Why? With Georgia Tech having no timeouts, less than 40 seconds left on the game clock. It's not fourth down. You don't have to run the ball. And instead of taking a damn knee, he decides to hand the ball off. Was it a fumble? Was it not? It's close. But still, if you take a knee, you're never in that position. Georgia Tech never gets a chance to score. And it's not like, that Georgia Tech gets this fumble and they're right there and they can win this game easily. Georgia Tech had to drive down the field. So, not only did Miami fumble the ball because they didn't take a knee, they also let the Georgia Tech offense just run right down the field.
Yep.
So it's just, it makes no sense to me why you would not take a knee there other than to just pad stats. I don't know.
It really does seem that way. The other situation where he had done it before, it was at least excusable because it was more than 40 seconds left on the clock, and Stanford still had a timeout or two. I think they just had one, but still. So him running the ball at that point in time was, understandable. Get the first down, make them spend their last timeout, run the clock a bit down, and then take a knee. You were under 40 seconds. They had no timeouts. Literally all you had to do was take a knee, and you cost yourself the win. Props to him for owning up to it in the press conference and not trying to go and try to, blame it on someone else or, percentages or anything like that. He owned up to it. Bad call on my part. That's on me.
Right.
So, hey, props to him for that at least.
Right.
But still, it's going to be one of those blooper reel moments for forever.
Oh, right. Obviously Miami really shot themselves in the foot this game. They should have beaten Georgia Tech very easily. But, Tyler Van Dyke had 3 interceptions, which didn't help. Turnovers never help you in football games. That is the recipe to upsets.
There was a lot of turnovers this week, it felt like.
Everywhere. But
yeah, at least one, it felt like.
Right. Obviously, I don't think really anybody's going to remember any stats from this game. It wasn't really a stats game. It's really going to be that final play of the game that's going to make this game go down in history as one of those, do you remember that game type of games? So, obviously, good job to Tech. They get the win. Unfortunate for Miami being undefeated going into this game with a shot at the ACC, and you do that. In a year where there's 3 ACC teams that are undefeated right now and could all go to the championship. So
theoretically, we were talking about that. We were talking about that beforehand. There's a possibility that North Carolina, Louisville, and Florida State all end the season undefeated, which would be hilarious because none of them play each other in this first year that the ACC is going without divisions. And because of that, you have no clue who all's getting in the championship.
Right.
Because the ACC wasn't expecting Louisville to be this good at this point, I don't think. I think they expected it to be Florida State and Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, Louisville kind of came out of nowhere. North Carolina, not so much out of nowhere, but I mean, what are the odds that the three best teams in the ACC right now don't play each other at all? So there's a good chance there could be a three-way tie.
It's honestly hilarious.
I mean, obviously, I think Florida State's got the best chance to make it. They don't really have a huge game left in the season. Louisville still got to play Kentucky later in the year. Obviously, we'll get to Kentucky later. They still got a couple big games. Right. I mean, North Carolina's still got some bigger games left this year. So, obviously, I think Florida State's probably a lock if they keep playing like they have. But it's going to be a toss-up between which team can finish the season the best between Louisville and North Carolina, obviously.
Agreed. I'm intrigued how Georgia Tech is going to use this momentum, because they were not supposed to win that game in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Miami's screw-ups allowed them to stay in, and their biggest screw-up allowed Tech to win the game at the last moment. It's going to be interesting to see if they can spin this into I think a bowl berth was already possible for them, potentially. But I think with this upset win over Miami, that almost guarantees it, because now all they have to do is get 3 more wins, and they've got to be able to get 3 more wins on their schedule somewhere, right?
Right.
I mean, who were the 3 losses against?
Bowling Green, which is unfortunate.
That should have been a win, probably, more than likely.
Let's see. It was, if I can find it. Unprepared. Come on. I want to say it's like Bowling Green, Louisville, and Ole Miss. Bowling Green, Louisville, and Ole Miss are their 3 losses. So 2 of those losses you could give an excuse. Obviously, Louisville's one of the best teams in the ACC right now. Ole Miss is no slouch in the SEC. Bowling Green, they lose by 10 to them. Probably should have won that game. So you could probably find 3 more wins on their schedule, but we'll see how that goes. Moving on to a shootout and a heck of a game. Missouri versus LSU. Holy crap. It was back and forth.
Mizzou had an early lead in that one and went into halftime with it. But they just got completely and utterly outscored in the second half, and it was bad.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they had a chance to drive down the field and take the lead late, and then Brady Cook throws that interception for a pick 6 to Major Burns, from his 5-yard line, which is unfortunate. It makes
Major
that score
Burns,
look
one of the better, or I wouldn't say better, but one of the more I don't want to even say weird, but unfortunately named defensive backs. You never want to be defensive back with the last name Burns.
Anything with
or
Burns
the first
to
name
do
Major,
with
it. That just leads to a bunch of jokes.
Major Burns. I never thought of that.
If you get burned on a play, oh dear Lord, it's over.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Brady Cook had a really good game, too. I mean, 411 yards, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, the 2 interceptions aren't great. But Luther Burden, another great game. Obviously, he came into the game leading the country in yards receiving. So that's huge. His running back had a pretty decent game for Mizzou. But once again, Jane Daniels puts LSU on his back.
Yep.
130 yards rushing, another 259 in the air. I mean, Jaden Daniels has been that LSU offense all year long.
Yep.
And
He really has.
it's ridiculous. Honestly, I could see him being a finalist for the Heisman if he continues to play the way he has.
I can see that, and it's insane to think about what all he's done this year, because he's the reason they stayed in that Ole Miss game, passing for however many of 500 something yards last week.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, and just that, so that actually jacked him up enough in the passing yards to where now he's, with this game as well, he's now third in the country in passing yards, behind Michael Penix Jr., who has 1,999, and then Shadur Sanders is number one with 2,020 yards.
Wow.
Yeah, and then fourth place, we'll get to fourth place a bit later, and talk a bit about him a bit more then. But anyways, Jaden Daniels has done amazing, and it wasn't just the fact that he kept them in the game with his arm; he kept them in his game with his legs too. It's like you said, if he does keep playing this way, he should be a finalist for the Heisman.
Right. I mean, obviously he's got really great wide receivers. Obviously he's got Malik Neighbors with, again, another great game, 146 yards on 6 receptions, which is ridiculous.
Yep.
Another touchdown. Obviously LSU, they've been fighting all year long. Obviously they had that loss to Florida State to start the year. They kind of get blown out a little bit there.
Lost out Ole Miss last
week in a dogfight. So, I mean, they've been playing good. It's just been close losses. Obviously, I mean, what can you do? You got to finish the games.
Something needs to get fixed with that defense. I do believe that they have too much talent on that side of the ball to not be just suffocating a team like Mizzou,
Right.
And to be fair, credit to Mizzou, I think they're underrated themselves. Brady Cooks looked great. Luther Burden, obviously, like you said, both have looked great. And then you've got 9 of their starters returned on defense this year.
Right.
So they're sneaky good. They're sneaky good, in the words of Lee Corso.
Right. I mean, obviously LSU's got Auburn next week, and if they don't get that defense fixed, Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford and that quarterback running game could give LSU a fit. It's just a recipe for an upset. Not that it would really be an upset, I don't guess.
And I think Hugh Freeze is still calling plays for him now, right?
He should, considering they played the number 1 team in the nation to a touchdown loss. I mean, and kept it, didn't let Georgia get the lead until the fourth quarter.
Late.
So
yeah, it's stupid if Hugh isn't calling the plays. He needs to be calling the plays. He's an offensive mastermind. I'll give him all the credit in the world.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's going to be a game to watch next week, though. So that'll be close, but we'll move on to Maryland at Ohio State. Now, you look at the final score here, right? 37-17 Ohio State.
Yep.
If you didn't watch this game, you'd think, well, there you go, Ohio State blowing out a team they should blow out. But it was only 20-17 going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Maryland had the lead for most of this game, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. Talia Tagovailoa, he had 2 interceptions to 1 touchdown, but he's better than some people are leading on. Now, granted, I don't think I severely doubt that. That thing he said about getting offered millions to go and be the starter over at an SEC school. Maybe it might have been Tennessee. Maybe
I could see that,
but that's about it. That's the only one I could really see, because Drink looks like he's very content with Brady Cook. LSU's got Jane Daniels. Georgia's got Carson Dax. Maybe Kentucky as well. Maybe.
You're right, but they just got Devin Leary in, so I don't.
Yeah, and Plus, I don't think they were expecting, which we'll get a bit more into him. He's still recovering from I think it was a pec injury.
Yeah.
Maybe. So like I said, we'll get a bit more into him. The only other one I could feasibly think of is possibly Ole Miss, because Lane was real big about bringing in some other quarterbacks into the transfer portal this year, which was surprising with Jackson Dart still there. But
maybe Florida, but
maybe Florida.
Maybe Florida didn't believe in Graham Mertz. Probably right not to believe in him so far based off this year. But
I don't know. To be fair, last week he put up a decent stat line. It's just the rest of Florida didn't.
The rest of the team is awful.
Yeah.
Speaking of good stat lines, though, Kyle McCord had a career day. His career high in passing yards for him, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
It was a really good game from him. He showed a lot. Really answered a lot of questions a lot of people had about him is, can he take that step and be the next great Ohio State starting quarterback? I mean, obviously he's not on the level of a C.J. Stroud or all the other great Ohio State quarterbacks in college, but this is definitely a step towards that and a step to showing he can pass the ball and Ohio State can move the ball through the air if they have to, especially late in the game.
The only thing that has me on edge about Ohio State right now is the same thing that a lot of people have been saying about Georgia, the slow starts. I think that could come back to bite them against a team like, obviously it could easily come back to bite them against Michigan, but I think also Penn State, it could come back to bite them against them, and maybe another team or two.
Right.
So, I think if Maryland had a bit more depth, they could have actually put this game out of reach for Ohio State at a point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they don't have the depth of an Ohio State or a powerhouse team or the talent, right? So,
if they had a few more 4 or 5 stars, I think they win this one.
That is definitely possible, but obviously, I mean, it's Maryland's first loss of the year, so
yeah, they were undefeated.
Hopefully, they can bounce back next week against Illinois. I like Maryland; they're a good team, so if they can just keep getting better. Ohio State obviously stays undefeated and continues to try and get ready for Michigan, really.
Yeah, that's the because they got Purdue next week. That should be a win for them. Now, granted, Purdue, I think, recently has actually pulled the upset on them, if I remember correctly.
I think they did 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, so, I mean, if they get off to another slow start, it could be very feasible.
Anything can happen on any given day.
Yep, there's the tagline. There's the, he said it. It's like you said, McCord looked good. He didn't look like he struggled that much comparatively. And I know some people are going to look at he only completed 19 of 29, but still, he looked pretty good.
That's all it takes.
He still got 320 yards.
Yeah, you don't have to pass the ball 40 times a game to win a game if you're throwing for 320 yards and 19 passes. So, I know we talked about Louisville a little bit earlier about them possibly winning the ACC, and they walloped Notre Dame this week. I know we talked about Notre Dame being a contender earlier this year. Obviously, they lose to Ohio State, almost lose to Duke, and now do lose to Louisville. I mean, they're out of the playoffs at this point, I'd say.
Have to be. Between not playing for a conference championship because they're not in a conference and a second loss, feasibly with how good they had been playing, if they had stayed at one loss and enough of the other teams around lost at least one game, you could have made an argument. Would they've gotten in still? Probably not, but
there's still an outside chance. Now there's none. Which
they're done.
Looking at these stats, I mean, Louisville's quarterback Jack Plummer had a not great day. I mean, only 145 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 17 of 24. I mean, so just looking at it, right? high completion percentage, yeah, but just looking at it, you're like, nah, there's no way Louisville won this game, but they destroyed them. It's 33-20, and it was
They were efficient.
Yeah, they're very efficient. I mean, they ran the ball for a lot, 143 yards.
Yep.
They got 5 sacks on defense. I mean,
well, they ran it for more than 143. That was just their leading rusher.
Their leading rusher, 143 yards.
2 touchdowns with like one. I think he had a 45-yard long run at one point. Their defense though was there. They had 8 tackles for losses and 5 sacks.
Yeah, I mean,
it was hilarious because the last time Sam Hartman had played at Louisville was last year when he was a quarterback for Wake Forest, and he threw 3 interceptions last year too.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's had 6 interceptions on that field in the last 2 years. 2 years.
So he just don't play well at Louisville, apparently.
No. Apparently that field has him rattled or something.
Apparently, it wasn't a great completion percentage either. 22 for 38.
I mean, 254 yards.
Not bad. 2 touchdowns, but
I think that might have pulled him out of Heisman contention.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, 3 interceptions. Yeah, no, it's
which it sucked because like after week 0, it was like which. To be fair, it was week 0
against Navy.
Yeah, in Dublin, and he threw like 4 touchdowns or something.
Right. Right. I mean, obviously Notre Dame plays USC next week. That could be a dogfight
for the jeweled shillelagh. I think that's like probably one of my like favorite trophies of all time.
It's a fun one.
For those of you who don't know, each and every time one of the teams win, right? So if USC wins it, they go and they add a ruby to the shillelagh. Whereas if Notre Dame wins it, they add a emerald. And it's a very beautiful trophy, in my opinion. It's one of my favorite trophies, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's going to be an exciting game next week based off how USC played this week. We're getting into that here in a second.
Yeah.
Obviously, Louisville's hoping to be an ACC dark horse this year. They got Pitt next week. That'll be an interesting game.
I wonder if, which, shame to say, I haven't really paid much attention to Pitt this year, or Pat Narduzzi.
Yeah, no, me either.
Yeah, they just they've been kind of off the radar ever since the backyard brawl at West Virginia. Speaking of that, did you see that viral video?
Oh yes.
Of the West Virginia fans.
Oh yes. And I wish I had been there for that. That seems like such a great time and such a great tradition. Well, I want to experience it.
No, not the country roads. Not the country roads.
No, Sweet Caroline.
Yes.
It's such a great tradition. I would like to be there for another West Virginia Pitt game.
Needless to say, for those of you who are watching, they replaced some of the
does.
Yeah, with their own
some colorful language
that rhymes with Pitt. And told to eat it.
So yeah, seemed exciting.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
They were very into it. It was awesome. It's why I love the sport.
So yeah, we'll see how that Louisville Pitt game goes next week. Moving on to a USC game, Arizona at USC, 43-41 in triple overtime. USC pulls it out, and
time out real quick. Can I just I'm making a formal request to ESPN, NCAA, Pac-12, really any powers that be that can have control of this. Please, quit putting these games on so late. If Georgia fans have to go and watch a noon kickoff for their team, or something of that nature, or Alabama's have to watch an 11 a.m. kickoff for their team, it doesn't hurt that a USC fan has to go and watch a 5:30 kickoff, their time,
I agree.
Or 4:30, or, and hear me out, it's crazy, I know, but a noon kickoff their time.
It's almost like the rest of the country does it, and they never have to.
Yeah, it really is just.
It's annoying.
It is.
As somebody that likes to watch good football, it's annoying that I have to stay up until 2 a.m. to finish a Pac-12 football game. But
yeah, it really is, because they do have some great football over there. It's just they're always putting it on so late.
Yep.
Lord knows I'd rather see that than watching, I don't know, Illinois versus... No, not Illinois. I'd rather watch USC versus Arizona at 3:30, 4:30 our time than I would want to watch Iowa versus Northwestern or any Iowa game, really.
Yeah, any Iowa game ever. Not a great football team.
It's just, oh my gosh.
It's embarrassing.
The offense is, what's that word we like to use on
anemic?
Anemic, yes.
Anemic.
Yes, that word. Very anemic.
Very anemic. But
if they had an offense, here is a genius idea. It would never work because Lincoln Riley's already head coach. But if Kirk Ferentz had hired Lincoln Riley as his OC at some point or another and stole him away from Oklahoma before he became head coach, and hired him as OC, and it's like, hey, play calling's yours and yours alone instead of his son.
Yeah.
Maybe they could have been.
You know, there is another Riley out there who's kind of stuck in limbo with a head coach that's stuck in his ways, and we'll let him call an offense. So.
Yep.
Maybe.
That little school over in South Kakalaki.
Yeah.
Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, watching this game, if there's one thing that I found out is that Lincoln Riley should never be trusted with the lead, ever.
No, never.
Ever.
No, he is, dear Lord, it's like he finds a way to wet the bed anytime that happens.
I mean, like, I don't...
It's embarrassing at this point. You're a grown man. Quit wetting the bed.
Right. I mean, I don't get it. Like, he's had Alex Grinch for as long as I can remember at Oklahoma and now at USC, and all his defenses for any team that he's ever coached have sucked. They've been anemic. So, like, I don't understand why he's sticking with this guy. Like, Alex Grinch has to have some kind of photos or something on Lincoln Riley for him to still have a job, because it's
Grinch
ridiculous. Apparently.
Grinch Island, not Epstein Island anymore, Grinch Island.
Apparently, he's got to have something on Lincoln Riley for him to still have a job.
Or he shares the same island that Alex Anthopoulos.
Apparently.
We're recording this one late, by the way, people. The Braves just won and beat the Phillies to tie the NLDS series up a few hours ago. So just we're kind of still worn down from that. So excuse us in part of that way. But no, I don't know why he keeps Grinch on. It's a misplaced sense of loyalty, and
I guess
even then, it's like Lincoln does not strike me as a guy who can recruit a defensive player.
No.
Like a true, legit 5-star defensive player. So, unless he really doles out the money, I do not see him ever really having a defense that he can rely on.
No.
And because they have an elite offense, I will always give him that. He is one of the best offensive minds in the game.
I agree.
When they can't get that offense going, they are in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, Caleb Williams really struggled in that first half.
I think he only had like 90. It was either 92 passing yards in the first half or 92 total yards.
Low.
Which is super low for him.
Yeah. I mean, does this game knock him out of Heisman contention?
No. No, and the only reason why he doesn't get knocked out is because he's won it before, and this is kind of everyone knows this is an outlier of a game. I think.
Yeah. I mean, only one touchdown, 219 yards, 14 for 25.
No, one touchdown passing. He had 3 rushing touchdowns.
Oh, I see. 3 touching. Okay.
And the 2-point conversion. Yeah.
So he didn't have a bad game.
No, he turned it on in the second half. But if we're looking for the most complete quarterback over that entire game, this might be a bit of a hot take. I think Noah Fifita was the better quarterback that day. I think
definitely
by his defense, by Arizona's defense, some stupid penalties cost them that game. Because there were a few times where one of the linebackers, Flo, he got a late hit on Caleb Williams, and I mean just like stupid mental penalties that just extended the drive, and oh my gosh,
right?
If that doesn't happen, they win.
Oh yeah, definitely. They should have won that game, but obviously they don't, and USC pulls it off. Good for them.
Yep.
Still undefeated.
They survive again, because that's what it was. They survived.
That's what you have to do. I mean,
sometimes yes, but it
shouldn't be every week.
The amazing thing about Fifita, though, going back to him real quick, he was a 3-star dual threat quarterback coming out of Huntington Beach, California. He only had 2 Power 5 offers, Cal and Arizona. Depending on which site you go to, he's either 5'9", 5'10", or 5'11". ESPN has him listed as 5'11" and 194, but coming out of high school, he was like 5'9", 5'10", 170. So that's probably why he wasn't rated as highly. But some scouts did have him as a Power 5 starter. It's just
the height.
Which is...
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing you saw with, like, Stetson Bennett at Georgia. He was that short guy. Nobody really wanted to offer him, but Georgia didn't have a choice, and he ends up, being great for Georgia.
National championships and becoming the greatest quarterback in school history. And anyone who disagrees can miss me on that. I know a guy who ended up going D1, but he should have been a Power 5 quarterback, and I'd say he was good enough to be an SEC quarterback, but he was 6'1", and so he wasn't tall enough.
Right. I mean,
he ended up going to App State, winning them their first few bowl games in school history, and is now the quarterback coach over at Virginia.
Nice.
Yeah, he's done pretty good for himself. Coaching's in the blood, so I mean,
right.
He did that, but people need to. I guess the thing here is people need to stop overlooking some guys, because you look at someone like Noah Fifita and his height and his arm talent and everything that he proved in that game against USC. What's so different between him and someone like Kyler Murray,
right?
Who was projected as the number 1 pick, like in his junior year, and it was like I'm pretty sure Fifita might be taller than him.
He is, yeah,
exactly.
So, obviously, tough game for Arizona. They got Wazoo next week. That'll be an interesting one.
Yeah.
And USC's got Notre Dame, so that'll be a really interesting one. So we'll see how both those teams do. Moving on to Kentucky at Georgia.
Oh, dear Lord.
Holy crap. I mean, I know everybody was coming, these last couple of weeks, everybody's been doubting Georgia and, saying, is Georgia really the number 1 team in the country? Do they deserve it? And Georgia, I guess they were pissed off. Kirby Smart said something, and they came in there and gave Kentucky a butt whooping, 51-13.
They had, and that is the scariest thing in the world, is a motivated team led by Kirby Smart of all people. You do not want to deal with that. No one wants to deal with that.
No.
Carson Beck, like Bowers went off again. Like he had over 100 yards and he had 132 yards on 7 receptions.
Yeah.
And another touchdown. So he's keeping that whole 100-yard game streak alive right now. And even more than that, he moved second all time in school history. He moved up to alone in second all time in school history for most receiving touchdowns. And so he passed AJ Green, and he's 7 from tying Terrell Edwards. It's astounding, and he is a generational talent. He might go down as the greatest tight end in college football history.
He should.
And then you see what Carson Beck did, and so we're finally here. By the way, where we're talking about that the fourth ranked guy in passing yards in the nation. It's Carson Beck, which anyone who knows how Georgia has run their offense in this century knows that this is astounding in a sense. You don't see a Georgia quarterback normally go and lead in any way, shape, or form the nation as one of the top 5 leaders in a passing category. It doesn't typically work that way.
Right. I mean, ever.
I think the last time you could feasibly throw it out there would be either Aaron Murray back a decade ago or Matthew Stafford a few years before him.
Right.
Because those are the only 2 guys that I could think of. Because Aaron Murray had all these passing records set for the SEC, and then Stafford's arm was just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Georgia's defense is really good too. I mean, they held Ray Davis to only 59 yards, Devin Leary to only 128 yards, 2 touchdowns, but a lot of that was penalties.
And the one turnover the one interception that Beck threw because, well, let's face it, he was feeling himself a bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
He got a bit cocky there and tried to force one.
Yeah, and then he reeled it back in, and he got back into form. So,
and give me just one second to take my Falcons hat off here and gotta throw on the Georgia cap real quick here and say,
God.
Just give me a second. Just give me a second. To all the Georgia fans who are still somehow doubting Beck, I don't know what else to tell you. The man's 4th in the nation in passing yards. He's got all these. He's proved himself over and over and over again, and I don't get what else you want to see. Because I've got people who said, hey, he's played like crap. And it's like, have you actually watched the same games that I have? Because I'm starting to, and now I'm going to take, when I say this next part, I'm going to take the Georgia hat off, and as a college football fan, say, if anyone who has actually watched him in some of these games lately, in the UAB game, in the Auburn game, not even the UAB game, in the second half of the South Carolina game, in the Auburn game, and in this Kentucky game, you see a very poised quarterback who knows what he's doing. This game right here looked like they finally had a lot more of the playbook open. They finally opened it up because he showed and he proved himself in the Auburn game last week. And because of that, they're like, okay, we'll open it up a bit more for you. Here you go. Look what happened. They put up 600 408 yards of total offense. 435 of them through the air. Beck accounted for 398 of those yards? 389, my bad. He accounted for that much of the yardage in passing. If you do not believe in him, I don't know what else to tell you, except for, in the words of Josh Pate, my friend, you might be just a casual.
I agree. I think Carson Beck could be a Heisman contender if he keeps playing like that every week.
He very easily could.
If Georgia keeps playing like that every week, they could very well three-peat as national champions.
If they keep playing this way, then you could see both Beck and Bowers up for the Heisman.
Oh, yeah.
Do I think one of them wins it?
Probably not.
Who knows? I don't know.
But
I think at this point, Penix is the favorite to win it.
If he keeps playing like he is, yeah. Obviously, next week's game is going to be big in that. But
oh, yeah, and we're going to be previewing that game because
definitely.
Washington, Oregon. So, we'll see.
We will definitely see.
Kentucky, they back to this game in general, and not just the Georgia portion. Ray Davis is, you look at his stats. He had 95 yards total offense, I think, if I'm reading the stats right. 59 yards on the ground, 36 yards receiving, and a touchdown through the air. So he still looked good. I would still say he's still the leading rusher in the SEC. And I wish him nothing but the best. Like I said, you look at his story, he's actually a really great story. Just look into it. It's pretty amazing. I wish him nothing but the best. He just ran into a defense in Georgia that finally decided to start playing ball, and it sucks, but that's going to happen. And with Devin Leary, I do wonder if he's still hindered by the pec injury, because that kind of kept him out for a bit. And if he's not fully healthy, he should be sitting, but he's probably stubborn and is like, I can play, coach.
Right. It's got to be something, because he had wide receivers wide open. He's overthrowing them, missing right, missing left.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate to see, because he was a really good quarterback at NC State, but as of right now, it's kind of looking like that was kind of a lucky season, and he's not really been able to replicate that. So
I even had him as a dark horse Heisman candidate at one point.
Yeah, and he's definitely not lived up to that hype. So
not anymore. He's it's just it's tremendous.
Yeah. And Kentucky definitely doesn't get any breaks. They got to go play Mizzou next week.
Oh yeah, so they still got a game against Alabama later on in the year. That would actually be interesting. I am intrigued by that one. Depending on where it's at. I think it's at Kentucky.
If it's at Kentucky, it could be interesting.
Oh yeah, if it's at Kentucky later on in the season, like November when it's really cold and just Alabama could slip up and lose that one.
It's very possible.
Depending on how things go. I'm not saying they are. I'm not saying they aren't. We don't know,
right?
Because we still got a few games between now and then. Speaking of, Georgia has. Well, they do technically have to play a game next week, but you could realistically look at it as 2 bye weeks in a row, because they play Vanderbilt next.
Yeah.
And bye week before Florida. It's Vandy. I think the only thing the coaches have to worry about is getting the players back in the hotel on time for curfew on Broadway and keeping them off Broadway.
Yeah.
And trust me, I've been up to Nashville. Broadway is very tempting.
Right.
In the words of Morgan Wallen, those Broadway girls, man.
You leave them alone.
Leave him alone. It's bad.
All right, moving on. Alabama at Texas A&M. Obviously, Alabama pulls this one out. Now, I found this interesting. I was watching the game, obviously, and since A&M has joined the SEC, every time these two teams have played, the team that was leading at half has won this football game. And this week was the first time that it didn't happen because A&M was up 17-10, doing really good, and crapped the bed in the second half.
That's
Alabama made some defensive adjustments and could get nothing going, and Alabama continued to go. So, obviously, Jermaine Burton went off this week, had a really good week. Jalen Milroe finally started to get something going.
Mm-hmm.
Still got sacked like 6 times.
Yeah, that O-line by Bama, that is their biggest problem.
Yeah.
You don't worry about when you go up against, if they end up going to the SEC championship and let's say they do end up playing Georgia, you don't worry necessarily about how many times they get sacked. You just worry about the havoc rate that Georgia's defense will cause, because that's something that Kirby Smart is big into. He isn't necessarily worried about sacks and how many of those you get. He's worried about the havoc rate, getting pressure on the quarterback.
Pressure, right.
Yeah, pressuring them, getting them just rushed and unfocused and causing them to make mental miscues. So you do that, and that's what he's worried about. That's what his defense does best. They're never going to have these high sack numbers, but they work.
Right. Yeah, I mean, A&M probably should have won this football game. A&M looked like they should have won this football game going into half, and then Alabama comes through and just looked like the Alabama that we're used to seeing there in the second half. So
it is interesting, all season and even in the off season, you heard murder ball, run the ball down someone's throat, all this stuff. A&M took the run game away from Alabama.
Yes.
I mean, Alabama in return took it away from them as well. But Jalen Milroe, he, like you said, he might have finally figured something out. He actually looked competent in the pocket. He threw for over 321 yards and only 1 interception. So it's astounding. It truly is.
Right.
If he's got that figured out, and then you partner that with a run game,
it could be unstoppable.
Yeah, it really could. If that fully clicks, SEC's in trouble again.
Right.
But I want to give it another week or two. They've got Arkansas next week.
Yeah, they got Arkansas. So that'll be a nice test.
So for all we know, we could just be, inflating them, putting them up and up and up, and then just they wet the bed against Arkansas for all we know, and barely beat them or get upset by a field goal or something. Which, if we're being honest, I think Arkansas and Sam Pittman, I think they're looking to beat Alabama.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's the only way at this point that Sam Pittman might be able to keep his job after the season's over.
Probably. We'll see how that goes. Probably won't happen, but anything can happen on any given day.
Yeah. Yep. And one other thing, and we'll never know. We will never know. I do wonder what this game would have been like had Connor Wegman not gotten injured 2 weeks ago against Auburn.
I mean, anything's possible, but obviously we're never going to know. But
yeah, I do know it doesn't help that you punt the ball on a 4th and 1 in a positive yardage situation, like Jimbo did.
Mm-hmm.
It's like with Mario Cristobal. I don't care what percentage is said. That's a situation you go for it. You have to get that to win the game. You have to, and you didn't. You cost yourself the game.
No, I agree. I mean, well, it's Jimbo. Jimbo being Jimbo, but
outsmarting everyone because he's so smart.
Yep. Yeah, A&M's got Tennessee this week, so that'll be interesting. A&M probably gets a bounce back win there, I think, but we'll see.
I don't know. Does Tennessee finally cave and put Nico Iamaleava in, or
no? They should, but they won't.
No, Joe Milton, right? Joe Milton.
He's the answer, apparently.
He can throw it 90-something yards on
without
his
pads
knees.
on.
Yeah, and that makes him such a great quarterback.
All you need, strong arm.
On the ball, please, before you do that. Please.
Yeah. Moving on, we got the Red River Shootout. Big game of the week.
Yeah. Speaking about that, just kind of, I know you had something a little special picked up last week, and with your music that had coming out of the heavens, out of nowhere, calling for the horns to hook them and all that. Well, I got something special kicked up of my own this week.
Do you?
So I want you to look me in the eyes.
Really?
Yes, really. Really. Horns down on this. Horns down all week long. Horns down. I feel like we need to censor my hand, or else all the Texas fans are going to get mad. We need to, blur it out, something.
Listen, I know I was quite confident going into this game.
Confident, he says. Confident.
That Texas was going to win by 2 touchdowns.
There are several words. It was a bit more than confident, my friend.
Yeah. Listen. Texas should have won this football game. Listen.
I don't know.
Oklahoma has the ball with like a minute and 15 seconds left on their 25-yard line. And Texas's defense just, I don't know, fell asleep or something. It's like they felt they had the game won already, and Oklahoma drives down the field with no timeouts and scores a touchdown with like 15 seconds left.
Yep. Hey, that's what we call being clutch. That's what we call being clutch. Dylan Gabriel might have that clutch gene in him.
We'll see.
Just saying, because
stupid. It's stupid.
I mean, he's going to go up there, especially in the Red River Shootout. He's going to go up there with the likes of Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray.
Yeah, he took down Oklahoma. He took down Texas.
Yeah.
That's Oklahoma's Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's all they care about. They don't care about making the playoffs. They want to beat Texas.
And to be fair, he was overwhelming in total, right? So he didn't just almost have 300 yards passing, but he also had over 100 yards rushing. He had 113 yards rushing.
Holy crap.
Yeah, he had a touchdown rushing as well. And then tack that on with another touchdown in the pass game. And then it was just like a perfect storm for Oklahoma. They looked like a team. And I'll be honest, when Venerables took the job over at Oklahoma, I was kind of worried. I didn't know. I knew he would bring a defense to Oklahoma, a defensive system that would work. And so far, it really has this season. I wasn't sure if the offense would be gone with Lincoln Riley. They've got a pretty good offense so far this year.
Yeah.
And there were several plays where it could have been worse.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because I do remember he had a running back in the flat wide open for a touchdown. And, I mean, he puts the pass a bit low, but still, the running back should have caught it. And he would have been able to get in. But he dropped it and just, oh my gosh.
I mean, it was a great football game. It was a great football game.
Oh yeah, it was everything it was supposed to be.
It definitely lived up to the game of the week name.
That's what you get when you get the Red River Shootout. Notice shootout. And I was wrong about one thing last week. One thing, it's not AT&T that sponsors this game. It's Allstate. Still, nonetheless, you would think they would like to keep the name Shootout. Just because, oh, hey, we have some life insurance.
Jesus Christ.
I think they do life insurance, right?
I don't know. Jesus.
Well, if they do, you would think, because, hey, by the way, in case you get shot, we got life insurance. But, I neither here nor there. Neither here nor there.
Jesus. All right. Well, obviously, these are the two best teams in the Big 12 right now, so there's in all likelihood they'll meet each other in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
Fitting way for them to go out of the Big 12, obviously moving to the SEC next year.
Yeah. Yeah, the two teams that are leaving the conference meet up in the conference championship. And I know Alabama fans are rooting for Texas to get to the Big 12 championship because
it helps them out, yeah.
Yeah, if Texas can get to the Big 12 championship and redeem themselves against Oklahoma, then that makes them look better than what they're looking like right now.
No, I agree.
They better be pulling for Texas, and they better be pulling for them hard. Texas fans, obviously, they want to get back there. They want to get to the playoffs. Also, they can go and start yelling about how they're back. Texas is back. Some of them will be delusional enough to go and say that they never left. Y'all were gone for a bit. I don't know if they're back just yet.
No, not just yet. They're definitely better than they have been. But...
Oh yeah, I think Sark's the guy. I do believe. I think he was the best possible choice, especially with them heading into the SEC next year. So that hire they made of him a year or two ago, good, and I don't think Texas fans want to get rid of him. So
no, they're definitely not getting rid of him.
No.
All right. You got anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I guess, who are your top 4 Heisman candidates at this point? Like, if you had to pick some finalists today, who would it be?
If I had to pick 4 people today.
Yeah, your final 4 for the Heisman.
Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers, and Michael Penix Jr.
See, I would put, and this might be a bit biased.
Oh, God.
Hear me out. So, I would put Michael Penix Jr. because I think of all the quarterbacks so far, he's looked the most consistent and the best. I would put Brock Bowers because you do have to have that one non-quarterback in there who's just a freak so far. And he's doing everything Marvin Harrison Jr. can do, plus he can block.
I agree.
And, I mean, so, like, not just that. This guy's probably going to go down as the greatest, like we said earlier, probably going to go down as the greatest tight end in college football history. So, him. I would say... So I've already picked Penix and Bowers. I would say the other two would be Beck because he really showed out this past week. And if he can play like that for the rest of the season, there's no reason he should not be a Heisman finalist, at least.
Right.
And then, I guess Caleb Williams as well, yeah. Like, he had a bit of an off week, but still he's been one of the top guys this season so far.
Right.
And, yeah, I know I picked 2 Georgia guys, but look at the stats, y'all.
I mean, if we're being biased here, I mean, Carson Beck, Brock Bowers, Malachi Starks, and Michael Williams
Yes,
are my four finalists, if I'm being biased.
If we're being truly biased, yes. And for the people in the comments who are saying, well, what about Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah.
It's nothing against him, but at the end of the day, they're fighting for bowl eligibility. And I don't mean that as in they'll get to bowl eligibility this year. I have no doubt about it. They're going to get 6 wins. They're going to qualify.
But that's their goal, is to make a bowl.
And that's what it should be. But we had all these people putting all these overwhelming expectations on them, and we've already talked about this. Lord knows we have. You had all these famous celebrities who were like, oh, that's my team now. That's my team because that's Deion. And it's like, yeah, but you're pushing out all the actual alumni and the actual fans and all that, and you don't know the history of the school program. So, I mean, it's just – but with Shedeur, back to Shedeur, I should say, he's looked great. And I think possibly he could end up as a Heisman finalist. I don't think when you're getting put on your back 5 times a game that you should end up as a Heisman finalist.
No, I agree.
It sucks because that's more of his offensive line than him, and he's won them quite a few games. So maybe he does end up as a finalist, but
entirely possible, but
you also have to take into account what team these players play for. And so he could be the best overall player in the country. We don't know. But
we won't know until the end of the year.
Yeah, and you're going to look at more teams who are actually in playoff contention than you are teams that are just fighting for a bowl.
No, I agree.
I will put out a hot take right now. If Noah Fafita shows up and plays like he did against USC for the rest of his collegiate career, especially the entirety of next year, I think he could be a dark horse Heisman finalist.
I mean, I don't see it because I don't think Arizona's got the talent for him to be noticeable enough, but
Did Louisville have it when Lamar Jackson was there?
Yeah, but this guy's not Lamar Jackson.
No one's going to be Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson was a completely different story. Lamar Jackson was a freak athlete on a bad team.
Coached by Petrino, right? Weren't they coached by Petrino at that point?
I think.
Boo, Petrino.
Boo, Petrino. All right. Well, that's all we got time for today. So we will see you guys next Friday.